Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. You always notice the absence before you admit it. The way her body shifted further across the bed each night. The way she flinched, just slightly, when I put a hand on her back. The way every kiss turned into a cheek. Every hug became a formality. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Long hours. Her boss riding her. Hormones. Life. But it wasn't life. It was choice. And it wasn't a pause. It was a strike. She stopped initiating anything physical 3 months ago. Stopped responding to touch. Stopped letting her clothes hit the floor anywhere near me. Started dressing in sweats and oversized hoodies that smelled like her job, not like her. At night, she'd scroll until midnight. AirPods in, eyes glazed, back turned. When I reached for her, she'd mutter, "Not tonight." And when I didn't reach anymore, she didn't ask why. She was comfortable in the silence. I was suffocating in it. But the worst part? She smiled during the day. Posted on Instagram. "My rock," she wrote under a photo of us at dinner, her hand barely grazing mine. Online, she was the doting wife. At home, she was a locked door with no key. I kept trying. Flowers. Back rubs. Cleaning the house before she came home. She thanked me. But not with hands. Not with eyes. Just a nod, a smile, and her retreat into digital space. I asked her, "Is something wrong?" She said, "I'm just tired." That line again. I'm just tired. But tired people don't dance at weddings, post bikini pics from girls' weekends, or stay up binging true crime at 2 a.m. Tired was an excuse. She wasn't tired. She was done. With me. And I knew it. But I didn't leave. Not yet. Because I had one question burning in my chest, and I needed the answer before I walked away for good. What changed? When did the man she used to undress in the kitchen become invisible? And what was she hiding behind those tired eyes and tight smiles? So I stopped asking, and I started observing. Quietly. Precisely. And that's when I noticed something. She hadn't stopped wanting. She just stopped wanting me. And I was about to find out why. Not with confrontation. Not with pleading. But with a move she wouldn't see coming. A reveal. One that would break the silence. And flip everything upside down. Once you stop chasing a woman who's emotionally gone, the truth starts to leak out. Slow. Unpolished. Brutal. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I simply stopped volunteering access to my thoughts. And she didn't ask. Because her comfort depended on my silence. But that silence was now strategy. She was on her third girls' night. In 2 weeks when I finally noticed the pattern. New outfits. Fresh nails. Done mid-week. Which she never used to do. A password change on her phone. She claimed it was for security after a phishing email. But her text stopped lighting up the screen. And the moment I stopped reaching for her in bed, she stopped playing tired. Just laid there. Still. Cold. Guilt has a temperature. And I'd learned to read it like a thermostat. So I started paying closer attention. The subtle shifts. Her phone always face down. The sudden interest in yoga, twice a week at 7 p.m. when the studio she mentioned closed at 6. She used to tell me everything. Now, she narrated nothing. I tested something. Said I had a late work meeting on Thursday. Watched her expression. Watched her text under the table. That Thursday, I parked 2 streets away. Walked past the studio. It was dark. So I waited. At 7:13, she drove by. Alone. But she didn't head home. She turned left, out toward a part of town we never visited. And I didn't follow. Because I didn't need confirmation that night. I needed proof. So I prepared. Installed a system. Something discreet. Legal. Private. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. When she came home, she kissed me on the cheek. The first kiss in weeks. I stared at her. She looked tired again. But this time, it wasn't exhaustion. It was fear wearing the mask of routine. She knew something had shifted. But she couldn't tell how much I knew. And that imbalance? It was mine now. She had gone on strike. But she forgot the first rule of any negotiation. You only win when the other side still cares. And I was already gone. Now I was just collecting the evidence to prove it. The next Saturday, she left again. Said she was going shopping with her friend Kim. I smiled, nodded, handed her the keys. Watched her drive away without asking which mall. No need to. I already knew she wasn't meeting Kim. She didn't know I'd installed the dash cam. Not the front one. She knew about that. The second one. Hidden. Facing the interior. Motion triggered. Backed up to cloud storage under a new account name. She parked in a lot near an office complex. Sunday quiet, even though it was Saturday. Then a car pulled up beside hers. He didn't get out. She got in. Passenger side. They sat there. Still. Close. No movement. Just proximity. That kind of stillness isn't friendly. That kind of stillness speaks of history. She came back 2 hours later with a shopping bag from a store across town. One item. Still in the receipt bag. Not enough to cover 2 hours. She smiled like she used to. Cooked dinner. Poured wine. Played music in the kitchen. I ate. I smiled back. Because her lie had already burned out. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't act different. Didn't bring it up. I needed more. Because one frame doesn't build a case. But a sequence? A sequence draws blood. The next time, it was Thursday again. She left in gym clothes. Said she'd be gone an hour. Came back glowing. No gym towel. No water bottle. No soreness. Just perfume I hadn't smelled before. A new kind. Sweet. Sharp. Meant for someone else's reaction. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't ask why. Just closed the bedroom door behind her a little softer than usual. The next morning, I changed the lock screen on my phone. Stopped sharing the calendar. Turned off location. Her voice shifted the first time she noticed. "You good?" she asked over coffee. I nodded. Said, "Great." Because I wasn't going to match her drama. I was just setting the stage. She'd been on intimacy strike. Withholding affection like it was discipline. But now she was negotiating in silence with a man who'd already taken off the ring in his mind. She just hadn't heard the sound yet. But soon, she would. Loud enough to crack the quiet she built between us. The next move wasn't about proof. It was about control. She had owned the silence for months. Owned the space between us. Decided when closeness lived or died. I let her. Until now. I pulled cash from our joint savings. Not a lot. Just enough to make her notice. I adjusted the car insurance. Removed her as a primary driver. I stopped contributing to her credit card rewards account. Not out of spite. Out of calculation. Because intimacy isn't just about touch. It's about trust. And trust, once violated, deserves consequence, not confrontation. She began asking questions. "Did you move money?" I nodded. "Why?" I just said, "I'm reorganizing some things." She didn't push. Because a woman only challenges silence when she still believes she holds power over it. But mine had already shifted. I started dressing better. Hitting the gym early. Keeping my schedule tight. Meal prepping. Cutting sugar. Sleeping 8 hours. I wasn't doing it for anyone. I was doing it because power isn't reclaimed through revenge. It's rebuilt in discipline. The more I improved, the more she watched. She started doing her hair again. Wore jeans instead of sweatpants. Left notes on the kitchen counter. "Hope your day's good. Dinner tomorrow? Miss you." Each one felt like a life raft thrown to a man already standing on shore. She started texting during the day again. Smiley faces. Memes. That familiar tone of flirtation. Light. Desperate. Subtle. But she never addressed what mattered. Never said his name. Never explained the meetings. Because she knew. She knew I knew. She just didn't know how long I'd known. And that gap? It was her panic. One night, she reached for me in bed. First time in months. I turned slightly. Said nothing. Because letting her feel the distance she'd built herself was louder than any rejection. She turned away. Quiet. Small. That's when she realized something she'd never considered. The man who once begged for her touch could now live without it. And that, to her, was worse than anger. Because it meant I'd changed. Not temporarily, but permanently. By now, the intimacy strike had become background noise. She stopped denying it. Stopped pretending we were just busy. And I stopped waiting for change. Because the man I'd become, he didn't need permission to reclaim his life. I booked a weekend away. Solo. Didn't ask. Didn't offer details. Just packed a small bag. Left Friday morning. And drove 3 hours out to a cabin I used to visit before we met. When she texted asking where I was, I replied 2 hours later. Clearing my head. No emoji. No softness. She called. I let it ring out. She sent a follow-up. "Are we okay?" I didn't answer. Because the power of silence is not in avoidance. It's in precision. At the cabin, I slept 12 hours the first night. Woke up to stillness. No makeup wipes on the counter. No passive-aggressive sighs. No tension like invisible fog. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I found clarity. She had taken intimacy off the table, but expected loyalty to stay untouched. She shut down affection, but kept demanding access. She wanted all the benefits of partnership, with none of the responsibility. And that's where she miscalculated. Because while she thought she was withholding sex, what she was really withholding was connection. And connection isn't optional. It's the currency. When I came back Sunday night, she was waiting at the door. Hair brushed. Sweater too clean. That anxious energy masked as calm. How was it, she asked. I said, it was needed. She nodded. Didn't ask to join next time. Didn't touch me. Because she could feel it now. The distance. Not the one in feet, but in finality. She started cooking again. Trying. Sat next to me on the couch. Laughed too hard at shows I used to watch alone. But it was all posturing. Because I'd seen the footage by then. Him. In her car. Again. Different day. Same parking lot. Her hand touched his leg. No kiss. No overt betrayal. But enough to close the file in my mind. This wasn't about proof anymore. It was about the reveal. Not to her. To myself. The version of me that tolerated confusion? He was gone. And what came next wouldn't be loud. It would be surgical. It started with a checklist. Not emotional. Logistical. Step 1. Financial separation. I opened a new bank account under my name only. Redirected my direct deposit. Canceled her access to my investment dashboard. Step 2. Documentation. I scanned every paper I needed, titles, insurance, tax records. Stored them in cloud folders she couldn't reach. Step 3. Property. Anything I brought into the marriage, I labeled. Logged serial numbers. Took photos. Clean, unarguable proof. Because when I walk, I don't leave room for negotiations. I also made a quiet call to a realtor. Asked for a private valuation of the house. She noticed I was spending more time at the gym. That I stayed later at work. That my laptop was always closed now. Her instincts were firing, but her voice was quiet. Because she thought maybe the shift was temporary. What she didn't know? Temporary was over the moment she crossed into someone else's car. This was phase 2 now. She came home one evening with takeout from my favorite spot. Thai. Extra peanut sauce. She placed it on the table like it was a peace offering. I said thank you. Ate it. Didn't smile. Because peace doesn't come in a paper bag. That night, she crawled into bed wearing the silk set she hadn't touched in 6 months. I didn't touch her. She laid there, back toward me, body frozen in wait. Minutes passed. Then hours. She finally whispered, "Are we okay?" And I said the most honest thing I'd said in weeks. "We're quiet." She didn't respond. Because even she knew what that meant. The next morning, I was up before her. Out of the house before sunrise. Clean shirt. Coffee in hand. Clear eyes. Because I wasn't mourning anymore. I was executing. The man she denied affection to? He'd stopped waiting at the door. Now he was packing. Not out of rage, but clarity. And when I'm clear, there's no return. She must have sensed something was off. Because the next morning, she made breakfast. Real breakfast. Eggs the way I liked them. Toast with butter, not avocado. Fresh coffee in the mug I hadn't touched since January. I sat. Ate. Nodded. Said thank you. But the connection? Still gone. She watched me like she was trying to read a language she once knew fluently, but had long since forgotten. Later that day, she sent me an old photo. Us. From a trip to Seattle. Smiling. Younger. She added, "We used to laugh more." I didn't reply. Because memory doesn't overwrite reality. That evening, she lit candles. Put music on. Low volume. Our old playlist. She came out in a dress I hadn't seen in a year. And for a moment, I saw the woman I married. But not the woman I'd stay for. She reached for me in the kitchen. A soft touch on my wrist. I didn't flinch. I just looked at her. No anger. No contempt. Just distance she couldn't cross anymore. I said, "You don't get to pause for months and press play like nothing skipped." Her hand dropped. She whispered, "I thought we'd find our way back." I walked past her slow. Because I wasn't cruel. I was finished. And that difference matters. She started texting more after that. "Want to do dinner next weekend? Let's go hiking, just us." She wanted to fix it. But not by addressing the why. Only by pretending it hadn't cracked. That's not repair. That's denial. And I wasn't in the mood for fantasy. I was living in reality now. Clean. Sharp. Cold. And in that space, love doesn't grow. It burns out quietly. She started crying at night. Not loudly. Just muffled sobs when she thought I was asleep. But sleep came easy to me now. Because the hardest part was done. She'd shut me out for months. And now, for the first time, she was locked out. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I no longer needed her comfort to feel whole. I had stepped out of the house emotionally long before I reached the front door. She was still living in denial. I was already packing the silence into boxes. The silence had changed. It used to be hers. Now it was mine. She tried harder. Woke up earlier. Cooked more. Wore perfume. She even bought tickets to a concert I mentioned 6 months ago, acting like it was spontaneous. I said, "Thanks," and left the envelope on the counter. I didn't need spectacle. I needed truth. But truth was the one thing she couldn't offer. Instead, she performed affection like a forgotten role she was trying to remember. She started asking questions again. Where I was going. Who I was seeing. Why I changed my passwords. But I answered nothing. Because when you're ready to leave, explanation becomes a gift you no longer owe. She asked me to join her for dinner with friends. Said, "Everyone's been asking about us." I said I was busy. She hesitated, then left alone. And that's when the real unraveling began. Her energy shifted. Not louder, but more desperate. She cleaned more obsessively. Rearranged rooms. Tried to reset the house like a button would erase distance. She made a playlist. Left it playing in the living room. All our old songs. That night, she waited on the couch in lingerie. Wine in hand. A candle burning low. I walked in, saw the setup, nodded once, and walked past. Because you can't romanticize over damage you never acknowledged. I heard her crying again that night. But I didn't go to her. Because her tears now came from absence. And absence was something I had mastered. The next morning, I dropped the final piece into place. Contacted a lawyer. Quietly. Cleanly. Told him everything was prepped. Documents, proof, accounts, assets. He said, "You're ahead of most." I said, "I've been ahead since the first night she flinched away." Because the real betrayal wasn't her getting in someone else's car. It was her shutting off affection while still demanding loyalty. And that broke something deeper than trust. It broke the home. Now, all that was left was to burn the blueprint. Without rage. Without warning. Just a quiet walk out the same door she'd ignored me behind. She came home from work early. Found my closet half empty. Suitcase gone. The air too still. She called out once. Twice. No answer. She wandered through the house like a stranger walking through someone else's memories. Then she saw the envelope on the kitchen table. My handwriting. Her name. Inside, the divorce papers. Clean. Signed. Accompanied by a short note. No anger. No blame. Just truth. You left long before I did. I just made it official. She sat down, staring at the paper like it would change if she blinked enough. Then the text started. 3 in a row. Please come back so we can talk. I didn't know it got this bad. We can fix this. I didn't reply, because the silence that once hurt me had now become my peace. I checked into a short-term rental that evening. Small, clean, quiet. It felt like breathing again after months underwater. The next morning, she called. I declined. She called again. Left a voicemail. Voice cracking, apologizing for the distance, for the cold, for making me feel unwanted. But she never mentioned the other man. And that silence told me everything I needed. She wasn't sorry she crossed a line. She was sorry she lost control. Days passed. She showed up at my office. Waited in the parking lot. I walked past her. Didn't stop. Because closure doesn't come from shared pain. It comes from chosen peace. She sent a final text. It said, "If I'd known this was your plan, I would have tried harder." I read it once. Deleted it. Because the man who used to chase answers was gone. And the man I am now? He doesn't explain the silence. He becomes it. The kind that echoes louder than any apology. The kind that says, "You had your chance. You weaponized intimacy. And now? Now you get to sleep in the bed you made. Alone." Weeks passed. The lawyer finalized everything. She didn't contest. Maybe she knew fighting would only drag her through a truth she couldn't unsee. The house went up for sale. She moved in with her sister. Said she needed space to think. But by then, thinking wasn't what she needed. It was hindsight. I kept everything minimal. New place, new routines. No social media. No announcements. Just a quiet rebuild. She tried again once, sent a handwritten letter. Said she'd been in therapy. Said she understood now what emotional withdrawal meant. Said she hadn't cheated, technically. She underlined that word. Technically. That told me everything. She was still bargaining with facts to avoid owning the reality. That withholding touch was never just about being tired. It was about control. About making me earn connection like a salary she never intended to pay. And when I stopped applying for her approval, she panicked. Not out of love, out of losing the upper hand. But I was beyond games. One night, months later, I saw her at a grocery store. She spotted me, walked over, hair longer, face softer, said she was doing better, asked if we could catch up sometime. As friends. I said, I don't do reruns. She looked stunned. But the truth is, some silences, once broken, don't get patched. They get buried. Because the man I was when I met her, he's gone. And the man I am now, he doesn't chase affection. He doesn't beg for closeness. He doesn't reward emotional starvation with forgiveness. He watches, learns, leaves, quietly, permanently. And for the first time in years, I sleep deep. Not because I won, but because I finally stopped losing myself for someone who couldn't meet me halfway. And if she ever wonders why I didn't scream, didn't fight, didn't explain, here's her answer. You don't owe closure to the one who slammed the door first. You just walk through it and never look back. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.